setup, steps to set up your home office ergonomically, discussion on the increased health risks due to poor ergonomics, common causes of back pain, tips to prevent back pain, and ending with a lot of opportunities for you to ask any questions that you may have. So without further ado, I'll pass on to Jay Prakash. Jay Prakash, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a very good time, and it's a midweek, so hope you all had time to relax your minds. And we are here to explain to you why ergonomics has got a significant impact on your life. Ergonomics is defined as the scientific way of fitting a workplace for a human. So, which means to say that we want the human to be happy. So, he needs to be comfortable, he needs to be efficient and productive. Only then it's considered as a good setup that you're having. Across the globe, there are many laws and standards. And if you happen to be in a country where there is no specific legislation, you could simply adopt the International Labour Organization's guidance because there's a standard checklist over there with a lot of questions to help you set up your workstation. And when I mention workstation right now, we would have already understood that many of us are already working from home or maybe in a hybrid kind of a working situation where you're toggling between work and office. So it's important to apply the principles back in your office as well as in your home as well. So now let's break the ice for the employers on how to protect your employees. The first thing to do is conduct a risk assessment for your workplace. This is a very, very important piece of work activity for any business because you need to understand what are the risks that's posing to your business. So where people are your assets, so you need to make sure that they are fitted fine into their workspace. And of course, you will need to make some consideration for persons who might not be a regular staff. So you could be having a situation where you could be having an employee who is physically challenged or pregnant employee or older employee. So you will need to make considerable factors towards human factors as well to assist you in conducting the risk assessment for your workplace. Next step would be to conduct an ergonomics assessment. Ergonomics assessment is pretty much to ensure that that particular individual has got all the setup done to fit his or her physical setting. So as we know, everyone comes in different sizes and shapes. So we need to ensure that we get the best fit for each employee. And definitely you need to act on the assessment report and follow the recommendations from them and so that you can make the employee experience a better one. Of course, there are many challenges when it comes to ergonomics, and it's even more worse when it comes to having a home office setup. The first one would definitely be distractions, lack of space, and budget. Because distractions is I would say, it's a constant. You're definitely going to have so much of distraction because you're going to share your home with your spouse or your roommates. So you're bound to have distractions. And lack of space, as we know that as the world is getting more and more developed, the space that we're living in is getting more and more small. So you could imagine living in a very small space and trying to fit in your laptop, your monitor, etc. And budget. This is very, very crucial because not many companies might have the budget to fund their employees to purchase the equipment they need to set up your home office. But not to worry, we have got the tips to set you up as decently possible in an ergonomic manner in your home. So let me bring on to the next slide. You should always start the setup with your chair. You could ask me why a chair? I mean, why not with the table that I'm having? Because a chair is the first place where you are going to be seated and working on. So you always need to ensure that your chair is giving you a good back support. The back support is very, very important because your spine needs to be fully rested against the back of the chair to give the spine the support it needs. And you should be keeping your arms as close as possible to your body at about 90 degrees. Of course, when I say 90 degrees, it's not to make you look as like a rigid person. You could give a buffer, but as long as you're not lunging forward or leaning backwards. So that should be good. And your feet should be always flat on the ground. The reason is because we want to ensure that the blood circulating throughout your body in a consistent manner. We don't want to have you with like a deep vein thrombosis. So you'll have spider veins on your thighs or your calves, which will be unsightly. So to prevent that aesthetic issue, please make sure that you keep your feet flat on the ground. And ensure that your chair is able to bring your body as close as possible to the desk. The reason is simple because the further you are, you're going to have more reach area. So you could imagine like having to access your keyboard, which is going to be like about 30 cm away from you, which does not make sense when you can just bring it closer to the edge of the desk so that you could easily sit and be in a neutral position where you can type and look at the screen easily. Next is a table. You will always need to fight this thing called glare or direct sunlight. This is going to be a tough one because you could ask me, I'm also having light above my head. So how do I do that? So it all depends on the positioning of your desk or your workspace. So this needs to be considered when you make the plan to set up your desk in your home or even in your workplace. And if you want to decide on getting a new desk or before getting that, because that's the budget part, right? So you need to do a risk assessment on whether do you really need a desk. So you need to access to whether do you have enough space on your desk to keep all the accessories that you need. When I mention accessories, it's not jewelry. It's your monitor, your keyboard, mouse, webcam, and speakers if you want. And always make sure that your table height is not too high. How do we define the height? It's basically making sure that when you're seated, like I said earlier on, in the 90 degrees with your hands close to your body, your hands should be just above the keyboard or the desktop. So that gives you a right height. If anything lower than that means you're way too low. Anything making you look like you're floating, if your fingers are already floating high above, like about 3 or 4 inches above the desk or the keyboard, then it's too high. So you should ensure that you get the right height. And always ensure that there's no obstruction to your feet. I've come across a lot of people who like to have kind of a support or cushion just to relax while they're working. It's good to relax your body, but that should be done in a different way. You should be taking breaks away from your desk and not by having obstruction to your feet, because like I mentioned, we want you to be in a neutral position as much as possible so that your body joints are feeling relaxed. And posture, of course, it applies to all ages, right? So if you were to look at the slide, you could see that lady, she's having a good setup over there, a reasonably good one, but she's not adopting the right posture. She's supposed to be using the back support of her ergonomic chair. It's actually an ergonomic chair. I can see the controls on the bottom, but she's not using the right way. So it's important to use the tool the right way. That's the main reason about understanding on ergonomics. So if you were to have a look and judge which would be representing you, would it be the picture on the left or on the right? Maybe if any of you got any questions, you can just pop it in the chat box and we can take it up. Just a quick one. Maybe I can give you about 10 seconds. If anyone can pop in a quick question. All right. I'm very happy. I'm very happy to note that none of you are sitting in a situation like this. So even if you are, you should always target to support your back first, because the spine, the lumbar spine is very important. It's taking on your structure load. So, okay, I've got a question over here. How do you stop yourself from slouching? Okay, slouching is a nature that we have. When we can't see something, we try to like lean forward with our shoulders and our back. So if you were to look at me, I'm leaning forward, and it's really not the normal thing. I mean, when you go to the cinema, you wouldn't be having to need to lean forward and watch the movie, right? Because obviously you are in a comfortable position. So to prevent that, so you should ensure that your body is feeling comfortable. For doing that, you need to ensure that first thing first is to use your two fingers, put it on your chin, and push it back with the palm of your hand on your chest. So when you do this, you would realize that actually you are getting a neutral position for your neck. So once your neck is settled, it's about getting your shoulders open up and relaxed. So that's how you should be maintaining your posture, and this is the trick to ensuring that you're not slouching. And another way to prevent slouching is always tell your colleague or your partner to remind you if you're not doing that. Of course, if he or she is also working, then you will have to rely on a mirror. This is very interesting to note that our head, which is about 5.4 kilograms in a normal posture, can act a load of up to 19 kilograms on your spine if you're leaning about 3 inches forward. That's about 6 to 7 cm forward. So to answer the question on slouching, if you happen to be slouching so much, you're going to impact so much on your spine, your cervical spine, and it's going to lead up to health issues, which could lead up to slip discs and disc herniations. So which is equivalent to the wear and tear of your muscles. So take care of your body. Do not wear them out so fast when you're so young.
or headphone, right? Right.
And another thing is that it's very important is to take a break for your tired eyes, because right now we're all pretty much spending a lot of time in front of the laptops or computers or mobile phones. So it's very important to take time to have some refresher for your eyes. So for every 20 minutes, please look away for 20 feet for 20 seconds. Some of you might be thinking, how am I going to even count 20 feet? Am I supposed to use a ruler or measuring tape? No. The idea is for you to focus far away, as far as you can. That's it. The further you have a vision which is unobstructed, the best. Of course, if you are having a seafront living or facing the farm, that'd be great. So let me do a quick recap on how do you set up your workplace. So you should always start with a chair and not with any other accessories, and ensure that your table is not getting the glare. And if your table is getting glare, for example, if you're seated in a desk and there's a window right in front of you or right behind you, it'd be best to use a curtain or blinds to block out the glare. And it's ideally a good position to set up your desk in a way that you are getting the sunlight from either of your sides, so that you could use a curtain or blind to block it out at the same time. And always position a keyboard, mouse, laptop closest to you, which I would say is the primary area, because you are going to end up using these items more than anything else. So you should always keep things close to you so that you don't have to reach out for them. Like I mentioned earlier, reaching out is only going to give you more strain to your body when it's supposed to be a relaxed activity. And please maintain your correct posture, because even if you're seated in a ergonomic chair with good backrest or lumbar support, or and even if you're going to go for a massage and come back, if you maintain a incorrect posture, it's going to do many harm, which will be irreversible, because the pain that you're going to get could transverse into a health issue, which could be irreversible. So please bear in mind for that. And like I mentioned, be careful to take your break for your eyes, because our eyes are muscles which tend to loosen over time. So the more you work them, the more tired they get, and you end up with headaches, migraines, and everything else which could disrupt your well-being, your productivity, and essentially affect your lifestyle. So now let me pass on the time to Dr. Chua, who's going to tell us what are the pain points in ergonomics that's going to affect you. Over to you, Doctor.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again to Jai for setting up this talk, as well as to Catherine and Nurul for letting us share here today. In this day and age, especially with the work from home situation, many of us are stuck in front of a computer screen for several hours and sometimes even longer because the boundaries between work hours and non-work hours become a bit more blurred. As part of our working necessities, a table must come with a comfortable working chair. And this is where ergonomics comes in, and this is exactly where you want to be applying what Jai has just shared with us thus far about your chair, table, and posture. While comfort is an important factor, health is what I'll be focusing on today. Next slide, please, Jai. Okay, prolonged sitting has actually been linked to increased risk of vascular problems, heart disease, and more. Specifically, we'll be zooming in on pain because we all know someone who has or ourselves have experienced a painful neck or back. Next slide, please. The presence of pain then affects your daily living, happiness, and also your performance of work. Next slide, please. So experts say that up to 80% of the population will experience back pain at some time in their lives. They then go on to speculate that at any time, 25% of this population are experiencing back pain. Now, what does this mean? Next slide, please. This means that we need to change the way we live for our health. Now, in addition to what Jai has talked about previously, I would like you to see these 3 points and remember them for a long time. Next slide, please. Firstly, sitting by itself does not cause back pain. Number 2, lack of movement causes back pain. Number 3, physical movement can prevent back pain. Okay, next slide. Now, sitting is not known to cause back pain. Current research studies do not support the idea that the sitting position causes back pain. However, we have to take into consideration the real world events. Imagine, next slide, please. Imagine yourself sitting at your desk and imagine again that we become so focused on our work, which, let's be honest, it doesn't happen for everyone, right? But just imagine first. What happens next is that your awareness of your surroundings and even your own body can blur. Next slide, please. You don't realize your head shifting forward and your back slouching. You even forget the time, and before you know it, you spend an hour or more like a statue with movable fingers. Sitting isn't the problem. It's what happens when we sit for too long. That's the problem. You know, just now in the chat, someone shared that they start out work in a good posture, but over time they start slouching into bad postures and they get into this bad position, but they're so focused in their work, right? And that later on causes issues. So this is what we are talking about here. Next slide, please. Then what about causes about back pain? Now let's everyone have a guess. Is it A, poor posture, B, long work hours, or C, lack of movement for long hours? Can everyone just type A, B, or C in the chat? Which one you think is the problem? All of the above. A, C, C, A. Oh, no one is picking B. Okay, let's see. Next slide, please. Sorry, Jai, next slide, please. Okay. Now, okay, you guys caught me, okay? It's actually a trick question because all of these contribute to developing back pain. But the one I really want to talk about is option C, because this is among the major factors that is the one that needs to be most addressed today. Now, movement in a joint has a strong protective effect on the health of a joint. Next slide, please, Jai. Yeah, so movements, right? Every time your joints move, it produces a natural lubricant called synovial fluid. Okay, you see on the left side there at the top corner. And this synovial fluid contains nutrients for the joint and relieves much of the stress that is placed on the joint and its surrounding structures, such as muscles, ligaments, and tendons. But when we stay still for too long, our spine and joints degenerate much faster than they should, and then we develop injuries and problems. You know, a common analogy here is talking about the door hinge, right? Have you ever seen a door that moves a lot that has a very rusty door hinge? Unlikely, right? It's only when a door remains unused for a long time, then it starts to develop rust. Then you start having the creaking joints and everything. Now, today Jai covered proper ergonomics when sitting as well. As important as it is, good sitting posture will not make prolonged static sitting healthy. Okay, next slide, please. So the key word here is prolonged static sitting. Okay, that means you sit there like a statue. You don't move at all. Okay, no matter how good your posture is, that does not undo the negative effects of static posture. Now, next slide. So poor sitting posture, as we know it, may contribute towards having a healthy back. Have you heard of this one before? But you might be asking yourself, how can this be? Okay, if you're thinking that I only have rubbish coming out of my mouth, just give me a second to explain. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the left side, we have good posture. Then on the right side, this is known as bad posture. Okay, and these are actually all normal movements of the human spine. So switching between good posture, quote unquote, good posture and poor posture induces movement in the spine. Movement when sitting can be healthy and beneficial for your spine. As I already mentioned, natural lubricants are released and it nourishes the joints. So muscles are also given a chance to rest and not become overloaded. Because when you slouch forward, the muscles at the back become tired. When you lean back too much, what happens is that the joint gets compressed too much. Okay, so either way, you might be hurting something. So by moving between the two, you give each structure a chance to recover and recuperate. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Another thought that may come across your mind is about pain and how poor posture tends to aggravate more pain and discomfort than good posture. This I agree to be true due to the spine's anatomy, okay? In such cases, you need to understand that while these positions aggravate the pain, it is not the only cause. The cause is a problem that requires much more time than we have to actually get into it. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Next slide, please. Okay, now here when joints develop problems, it affects the way the joints are able to move and also how the muscles and joints are able to work. In the lower back, joint problems in the spine and pelvis are very common causes of tightness, pain, and even sciatica. Okay, and chiropractic care and proper rehabilitation exercises are effective solution for these problems. Next slide, please. And we'll move on to the next slide as well. Okay, and though these are effective solutions, okay, a better solution is still to prevent the back pain. Okay, next slide. Sorry, Jai, can I get the next slide, please? Okay. Yeah, okay. Of course, improving ergonomics in your work environment is the key step. It also makes things much easier, and the habits that you are able to build, such as maintaining proper posture, will serve you very well. However, as I mentioned earlier, the lack of movement is really one of the key factors that can cause back pain. So here's a quick suggestion. Get yourself moving every 15 minutes. Next slide, please. So every 15 minutes, just get up. Like right now is a good time. Okay, I've been speaking for maybe about 10 minutes, but it's still okay. Just get up, have a quick stretch here, moving up, moving down. You can go about, do 5 lunges, or even just shifting about in your chair, resetting your posture, all these things. Just do it regularly. Okay, this is very, very beneficial. It's free and it's very easy to implement. Now, a quick word of caution here. You don't have to act like you've got ants in your pants while having an important meeting with your boss, then tell him that some chiropractor told you to do it. I will not be responsible for this. Okay, but research shows that light to moderate activity significantly lowers the risk of developing low back pain. After proper ergonomics, this is the best way for you to make a difference when it comes to working at a desk and looking after your health. All right, now a quick summary, please. Sitting by itself does not cause back pain. Okay, as I said before, lack of movement causes back pain. And physical movement can also prevent back pain. In conclusion, sitting with proper ergonomics with brief sessions of activity every 15 minutes will keep you healthy and help prevent low back pain and other health issues. If you already have health issues that are being affected by sitting, of course, this can be helpful as well. Just implement all these in, all right? But that's about it from my side. And I hope you learned something useful for today. Back to you, Jai.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Chua. So, as we understand that sitting alone does not contribute to lower back pain, it's about having lack of movement. So, recently I did a poll in the LinkedIn to ask a question: how would you resolve your back, neck, shoulder pain that was due to working for a long period of time at a desk? And 42% told me that they would consult a doctor. 32% told me buy an ergonomic chair. Others who shared via comments were mentioning that it depends, that they could go for a massage or something. The idea is to treat your issue. So you need to look back and think, why are you getting this pain? Is it because of something that you're doing? Is that a work that you're doing that is contributing to this pain, rather than immediately just go and consult a doctor? So you could do some simple changes before even taking the next step of consulting a doctor or buying equipment to facilitate you. So let me bring you on to the next slide. So this is another frequently asked question. Can I work from my laptop alone? As we know, the laptop is a invention which was supposed to be convenient to us for travel or work, but it might not be good for you in the long run, because it is not set up in a way that like you could sit comfortably. Because as you can see, if you're having a laptop in front of you right now, your keypad is after your mouse pad, so which means that you're still reaching ahead away from your mouse pad to reach your keypad. So which is the reason why you should be using an external keyboard, and we can't be having a 24-inch laptop screen. So give yourself the benefit, get yourself a nice monitor so you can view the font and text. So this is another way that you could minimize a chance of slouching forward, because if the font is small, if the contrast of the screen is not too good, you'll tend to lunge forward. And you should be using a mouse, because the mouse will help you relax your hand, and you're not going to be constantly having your fingers on something. Another question was, will an ergonomic mouse help me solve this issue? Yes, the ergonomic mouse is designed to relieve stress, but you need some time to get used to this kind of gadgets. The reason why I call them gadgets is because it's not the common thing that you can find in your office anyways. So you need to get used to holding something like a joystick and try to fiddle with it, and to have less strain on your arms. So I would just simply suggest to take the breaks that Dr. Chua was suggesting. That will solve the problem, and by sitting properly in the correct posture, you're going to be going fine. The next question: will a wrist pad be a good setup for my keyboard? Just in case some of you are not sure, a wrist pad is like those kind of gel, kind of like a memory foam pad, where you can put it just in front of your keyboard, so that you can rest your palm. The design was for you to rest your palm during breaks that you're taking from use of your keyboard, and not to use that while typing, because once you're doing that, you're actually depressing over here, and this is where you have your median nerve, and once it's compressed a lot, you're going to have pain so much that you can't even hold your pencil. So never ever depress your palm while typing. So imagine yourself as a piano player. You can see them having their fingers in this way and not in this way. So now it's your time to ask all the questions. In fact, I saw that there's some questions already earlier on. So one of them was asking about should the chair be having an armrest or not? The armrest was designed to let your arms rest, similar to what the gel pad is doing for your wrist. So don't rest your arms and continue typing. Try to be as relaxed as possible. The idea is to have mobility in your joints and not to constrain them. So maybe can we have some questions from the floor?
Hey, Jay. There are a few questions as the chat is actually quite happening. There's a few questions that is being brought up and being asked. One of the first questions that Zainul Abidin asks is for advice on small and medium scale industry that they can apply low cost ergonomic principles, because we talk about, you know, financial cost being one of the biggest hurdle for a lot of small medium enterprises. So how does a small medium enterprise encourage safe or best practices when it comes to ergonomics for their employees? Because right now, even in Singapore, we are all working from home as well. So as an SME, how and what can we provide to our employees?
Perhaps to answer the question, they could bank on the productivity support grant, which is offered by I think EDB. So because as part of productivity, they would be expecting to buy some new products or electronic goods and all that. So while buying that, they could tag along some support service from a consultant to support them with their setup. And you need not worry about the budget when it comes to ergonomics consultancy, because it's not going to really cost you so much. I mean, there's many ways about doing this. So I can take up this session separately with Zainal. I mean, if he wants to reach out to me, I mean, I can pass my email contact later. I can advise him on how he can go as costless as possible so that as an SME, they can still thrive.
Thank you, Jay. Another question from Zainul as well. He mentioned that if your arm is on the table or must be on the table, the contact stress is now near the elbow. How would you what would be your comment on this question?
Um, am I right to interpret it as the arm is on the desk or as in resting on the desk?
That's how I interpreted the question. I
Yeah.
suppose
So
that could be
if the arm
Zainul
is
if it's different.
if the arm is resting on the desk means that's already promoting a lot of strain on your nerves, as I mentioned earlier. It's similar. So you should be free. Your muscles are supposed to be relaxed when you're typing. So you shouldn't be like having your keyboard so far away where you're using the table as your support or as a lever. The table is supposed to be there to support your equipment and not to support yourself. So we need to bear in mind that we need to have the space between ourselves and the equipment. That's the reason why I'm asking for all the equipment to be as close as possible. Like for example if you have no choice and you don't have the money to buy a external keyboard and you're left with a laptop alone to work, or maybe for example if you are on stay home and you can't get out of your room right now, stay home notice. So what you could do is that bring the laptop as close as possible to you, push down the screen as far as it can go, and like I mentioned earlier, use your two fingers to your chin and push it in. In that position, just use your eyes to look at the screen. Let your eyes do the walking, and your fingers will be doing the typing. So in that way, you will be minimizing a lot of stress on your body, and it's an interim solution until you get to a space where you can have your equipment set up for you. I hope I answered the questions, I know.
Another question is from Elvin. I guess this is quite common. You know, initially when you first started working, you're all poised and you've got your backs against your chair, you're sitting perfectly at the start, right? But gradually, as you become more and more engrossed in what you're doing, your work, your position, you tend to be more into your desktop, into your laptop, so you go ori, and it's not ergonomical. So how do you recommend, as for ourselves, how do we constantly remind ourselves to correct our sitting arrangement? Because usually we will only correct ourselves when we start to feel the ache. By then it's a bit too late, right? So perhaps yourself or Dr. Chua, if you could, if there's any exercises or any form of reminder that has worked that we could possibly make use of ourselves as well.
Maybe I'll pass this on to Dr. Chua to give a different perspective to the answer.
Sure. Thank you, Nurul. Thank you, Jai. I would say this is something that we all struggle with, right? But at the end of the day, what I like to tell my patients is to use their environment, to take up most of the stress. Okay, let's just think about a very simple work setup. You've got a table and you've got a stool, not an ergonomic chair, a stool, right? So with a stool, your body has to be doing all the work. Okay, so when you sit on a stool, you have to constantly keep your back straight, your chest up, and you have to consciously do it. Otherwise, you lose it very fast. Okay, and now comes in the ergonomic chair. If you use the ergonomic chair properly with the lumbar support and the arm support and the backrest and proper height and everything, okay, you are then able to sit in an ergonomic, comfortable position that supports good posture, but you're only using half the amount of effort, right? So you want to set up your environment to help you with this positioning. What is the level of your keyboard and mouse? What is the level of your screen? All these will help make things easier for you to maintain good position. Okay, now in regards to reminders, do you ever need a reminder to eat? You don't, because most of us, when we get hungry, we recognize it, right? We recognize that growling in our stomach. Okay, some people don't really care about it, but that's their choice, right? So it's the same thing when it comes to posture. You have to make it a habit to notice when your body is tiring out, when your body is telling you, oh, Alvin, you are slouching and you're putting too much stress on me, your lower back. So can you change your sitting posture? I need you to reset your sitting posture now, please. You have to attune yourself to create that habit. Okay, and over time it will change. You won't have so many issues maintaining your low back, your posture, whether it's working on the laptop or whatnot, right? So it's two things: environment and habit. Hope that answers your question.
Maybe I can add on to that on the reminder part. With technology being so advanced, there's a lot of apps, and if you're using a laptop, there's a lot of tools that's available as a free software to remind you. But fundamentally, it still boils down to discipline, like how Dr. Chua is emphasizing. You need to sink in that it's your body and you need to take care of it. So you need to make sure that when the alarm pops up, you take the due diligence to check your body or have a break.
Yeah, sorry, just to add a little bit more. Yeah, you're right. Technology now, there's so many things. There are apps for it. There are even devices that you can stick on your back, and then it will ring. And then it'll ring when your posture goes out like that. But here's the thing: people use it for one day and they're like, no, this is too tiring. I cannot keep this up. And they throw it in the corner or they throw it in their cupboard and never see it again. And they just wasted a few $100s along with not making any change in their lifestyle, right? And there are also people that ask me all the time, is it good if I get that strap? I'm sure some of you have seen it, right? It straps your shoulders back like this all the time. And they're asking me, oh, is it a good idea to get it? And I tell them, for a temporary solution, yes. But long-term, you're not. Short-term, you're not going to feel comfortable with it. And if you don't like it, long-term, you're not going to implement it. And it's not going to make a long-term difference for you. And so what's the point, right? Okay, back to you, Jan.
Right. So back to you, Nurul. We can have the next question.
Thank you. Because on this question, it kind of reminded me as well. In the market, there's a lot of this ergonomic saddle. There's this kneeling chairs. Would you recommend as part of a solution to work ergonomically?
I mean, in my view, our body was designed to sit on a normal chair, and humans are supposed to be mobile, and we're not born to be static. So even if you're going to give a kneeling chair, which is in a different position, and like what Dr. Chua said, it's like sitting in a stool where it will remind you to adjust your spine and extend your spine. But do we really need to go to that extent to remind ourselves of the fundamentals? So we should always keep it simple, or I would always say that keep it stupid simple, because we need to understand that we we have a life to live, and we shouldn't be basing on a particular gadget to define us of how we should be living. So this is the first thing that we should be embracing, and not the technology alone. So in my perspective, I wouldn't advocate that. How about you, Dr. Chua?
Actually, when you're talking about that ergonomic saddle, is it like the back joy? Is that the one you're talking about?
Not really the back joy. The back joy, if I'm not mistaken, is just a piece of plastic that you sit on, right? That kind of
Yeah.
curved. Is that the one? No, not the
Yeah,
back joy, but
which saddle were you mentioning?
it is actually like they have a seat, and then there's a pole that's on that the seat is sitting on. So you're sitting in as if you're on a horseback, on your horseback riding. So it's like a saddle. You're literally on a saddle. Have you seen that before?
Yeah, and you got a knee,
Okay,
and you got a knee support as well.
Oh, I've heard of the kneeling one. The saddle one, I haven't, honestly. But yeah, exactly what Jai said. I still stick by that movement is still the best option. And honestly, for different people, different sitting positions are more tolerable for them. For some people, they find it more comfortable to sit in that saddle position. Some people find it more comfortable to sit on the floor even, right? All these things, it depends on your body, right? But at the end of the day, the best thing long term is really to still move about on a constant basis.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Choi and Jay. A question also, if someone has had an ACL surgery, I don't know what it stands for, anterior something ligament for your
Cruciate
knees.
ligament, the knee, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one, right? So for those who have had ACL surgery for their knees, right? What kind of recommendation would you recommend? Because maybe ACL is just one of the surgeries they have had. People with high blood pressure, hypertension, all of this can also affect the way they are sitting ergonomically as well. So is there a simple exercise that you could recommend to all of us, while we are sitting at home watching you, listening into you at the moment, other than the stretches that you were showing us earlier on? Dr. Chua, perhaps?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought this was for Jay. Yeah, so with ACL, right, honestly, the best advice I can give this person, sorry, let me see who asked that question. Nurul. Yeah, so the best advice I can give is to really find a good physio to work with, because ACL, honestly speaking, someone who has had ACL injury, right, even after the surgery, even if you don't get the surgery, some people don't have any complaints. They don't have any complaints. But as you age, as you reach certain age and your muscles don't have the same strength as they used to, you will start experiencing a lot of knee problems, and then you will be at a much higher risk of injury. And falls and fractures are one of the leading mortality causes in elderly people. So that's something you should really take into consideration for when you're older, maybe your 60s or 70s, right? So you definitely need to strengthen the muscles around there. Getting a good physio would be great, but otherwise a good exercise would be to target the gluteus medius. So you can look for something called the glute clam raise. Okay, so that's basically,
in simple English, it's something to do with your bum.
Yes, correct. It has something to do with your bum.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, you can.
Okay.
I'll type it into the chat. Yeah, you can go look for this exercise, and then you can do it with a simple resistance band at home. This is one of the best exercises I recommend for the general public, and it'll help strengthen your bum, make it look good. Okay, as well as allow you for more stability and more strength into your legs, and protecting your low back as well. So, yes.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Chua. Zainul asked another question. For sedentary workers, especially for long distance truck drivers, they've got no choice but to meet their delivery time, right? So to move every 15 minutes, it might be quite a challenge. So because I'm seated and I'm driving and I'm absorbing all the vibrations and all that stuff, what kind of recommendation or what can they do to make sure that they are not, they don't have DVTs?
Okay, so long distance drivers are in a completely different situation from people, from just everyday people, because number one, you're right, they're absorbing a lot of vibration, and research also shows that vibration damages the joints in your spine much faster than people who are not subjected to vibration on such a frequency, right? Second thing is also that they have no choice but to be seated in the car for a long period of time, right? And thirdly, this is their job. They really have no choice day in, day out. Okay. Now for them, because their situation is so different from I guess everyone else or desk-bound people, what they need to do is, number one, take as much of breaks as they can, take as frequent breaks as their time schedule can allow. So frequency is more important than duration, right? So some of them, let's say they have maybe like an hour time to take a break, right? What they'll do is they rather take their 1 hour break at once, right? But instead of that, I would rather advocate them try to take 4 15-minute breaks at one time if possible, right? So this will actually help them spread out the load across the day. Now, second thing is also that it is more important for drivers, this sort of long distance drivers, to do the proper rehab when they have time, okay? And here's the thing, if you tell most of them to do the rehab, they'll say, oh, I've got no time, okay? But what is no time for you, Is 15 minutes a day too long for you to take care of your back? Is half an hour a day too long for you to take care of your back? You have to see what they're willing to put in, okay? Honestly, 15 minutes a day is more than enough for them to do something to protect their back. And the results in long term will speak for themselves.
Thank you for that, Dr. Chua. I've got Zephan who has raised his hand. Zephan, would you like to unmute your mic? Perhaps your camera as well?
Hello. Yeah, I think as the discussion was going about posture and all that, just some comments from my practice is, I guess in office ergonomics and sitting down at workstation, while the sitting posture is something that we have been discussing this afternoon, the sitting posture is very much also as a result of how you set up your monitor, your keyboard, and your other peripheral that you work. But one of the problem when we are all talking about, one very common problem with all of us working on computer is we tend to lump everything together as we are just doing desk-bound work. But the truth is, if you are doing marketing, you're using a lot of phone, you are just serving the internet, you're using a lot of mouse rather than the keyboard. Actually the amount of time you deal with different things is different. So besides I think your posture will one of the question that made me raise my hand was how to remember to change posture, how to avoid ourselves slouching into a posture that is unhealthy. I think it's really about us realizing that when we are, if today I'm most on the phone, I'm just laying, reclining back, reading an article, proofreading, I'm just typing a document. All these are actually very different types of work. So when we talk about ergonomics in manually physical ergonomics, we will say safe lifting and everything. But when we talk about desk-bound work, there are also going to be slightly different variations of how we set up our phone, keyboard, mouse, monitor, bring the monitor closer to you, turn your monitor if you are reading, if you are doing reading. And then now, these days, there's a lot of all these things. So I guess that's just a little bit of my comment thinking about it. So it's not just on the chair, but the whole station itself. And even the last thing is, there's no one best position, because throughout the whole day of our work, throughout the whole week of our work, we change our different types of work. Sometimes we are doing data entry, sometimes we are typing. So all these are little things that if we are aware, it makes us change our posture anyway. Yeah.
Jai, you want to go
Zephyr.
first?
Yeah, thanks, Zephyr. You're spot on the part of the lifestyle or the work styles that we adopt, because it really matters a lot, because employee A and employee B will be having two different experiences in terms of ergonomics, because employee A might be like what you mentioned, he might be spending more time on having client calls, so he could be on his phone, or he could be having his headset and then reclining in a relaxed manner. But for employee B, who could be just sending out emails throughout the day, or at least 4 hours in a day, so we need to also factor that into our risk assessment to see how comfortable are we, and what are the activities that are we doing most that's causing this pain or discomfort. So that could help us retune and adjust our body to correct posture. And another point is that we need not always need to sit down to do our work. There could be times where, like for example, if you're attending a webinar like us right now, you could simply stand and listen to us and view the screen, because you're not required to type anything, or unless you are taking some notes, and even then you can take some notes while standing up. So you should be managing your work lifestyle in a flexible manner rather than being focused on just sitting alone. So I would say that should be a mix and match. Over to you, Dr. Jua.
Yeah. Okay. So Stefan, right?
Zephyr.
Zephyr.
Zephyr. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack in your question. Okay, especially when you throw in the fact that you have many different setups and many different positions, right? But here's the thing I want to bring you back to. Okay. In the human body, there is what we call a neutral position. Okay. And the biggest problem right now is also that most of us have forgotten what it feels like to be in a neutral position. You know, like if right now I ask you, what is good, what do you think is good posture? You'll show me something that you think is good posture, you know, and for most people, it's a very uncomfortable posture. It's usually like this. They'll pull everything back like that, and then they'll go something like this, right? But as anyone can do it, and they'll tell you it's uncomfortable, it's very uncomfortable. They cannot maintain that, right? So Zephyr, can you turn your camera on? Just let me take a look and just follow through this exercise I'm going to do with you. Everyone else can follow along as well. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to find your screen.
You're on mute, Dr. Chua.
Like everyone can just follow along.
You're on mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on mute. No, I'm not on mute. Am I on mute?
Yeah, shows you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Huh.
Okay, but we can hear you though. Strange. It's okay. Keep talking. I'll tell you when we can't hear you anymore. Oh, we can't hear you now.
It finally worked.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry, for some reason the host didn't allow me to unmute. Okay. Yeah, never mind. Zephyr, okay, just follow along, okay, Zephyr. I'm looking at you right now, so I want you to just turn to your side. You can choose left side, right side. Doesn't matter. Okay, so just turn to your side. Okay. Yeah. So when you're turning to your side here like this, right, what I can see is that your head is completely forward. You're leaning on something. Okay. Everything is leaning forward already. So here's what I want you to do now. First things first, I want you to bring your chest up. Okay. So right where your collarbone is here. Okay. I want you to imagine there's a rope pulling your chest up like that. Okay. You don't have to go all the way. Just go far until you feel comfortable. Okay. Good. Very good. Okay. Now from here, what you can already feel is that your mid-back and your shoulders might be a bit more relaxed already. Okay, the reason being is that your shoulders are not being pulled forward anymore. Okay, now, second thing I want you to do is I want you to just tuck in your chin a little bit. Okay, not look up, tuck your chin in like you're trying to do a double chin. Okay, back a little bit more. Okay, now bring your head back a little bit more. Head back a little bit more. Okay, right there. Okay, so if you were to turn to the side a bit more, right, everyone can see that your ear is right in line with your shoulder. Okay, Like for you, you cannot see, but people can see from the side, okay? And so at this position, you also notice that the back of your neck here starts to relax more, okay? The reason being is that right now, your whole spine is being stacked on top of each other, okay? And the muscles at the back are able to take a break. So this is your neutral position, okay? In regardless of whatever position you're doing and however you're working at the desk, right? You should always try to maintain this neutral position, whether you're working from the desk, whether you're answering calls or whatever. If you're able to maintain this or even come back to this and reset once in a while, okay? You will be able to maintain your spine health and everything, okay? And now that you know how it feels like, any deviation from this will be bad posture. Okay, and if you feel any tightness here, tightness in your shoulders, tightness in your mid back, all these things, right? You know that you haven't had good posture and you need to remind yourself a bit more. Okay, you can always set your phone alarm every half an hour, posture check. You just take a look, how you feel. Okay, do I need to reset? Okay, I reset. Then we go back to work. Okay, set again for another half an hour. Okay, and over time, right, you don't have to maintain this forever. You know, our research shows that after you maintain a habit for about 60 to 90 days, it becomes part of your life. Okay, and once you manage to make this part of your life, you won't have to be asking this question already. Okay, so I wish you all the best. It's a long and difficult process. I acknowledge that. Okay, but I'm sure everyone can do it.
Thank you very much for the demonstration, Dr. Chua. We are running out of time, so I'm just going to pick a few more questions to ask. One of the questions that is being asked, if we are working in Singapore, is there any regulation, John asks, if there's any regulations in Singapore that puts an emphasis on employers to supply ergonomics chair, or is it just more on moral obligations?
Okay, I'll take the question. So in Singapore, we have the Workplace Safety and Health Act, which is asking all the employees to ensure that the workplace is safe for the employee to work. So right now, with the home being the transited workplace, so the employer still has a due diligence to ensure that he is performing the right duties. So there's also the risk assessment part to it, and we've also the code of practice for ergonomics, which also going to give guidance to that. So you're right to say that there is guidance, and it's for employers to ensure that they are putting that into practice. So the first thing to do is to ensure that their risk assessment document for the office is capturing this part on the human factors. So, and then you'll naturally be addressing the other issues on ergonomics, and which will be driving them to address the issue on the ergonomics assessments for your staff. I hope I've answered the question. Welcome.
Okay, so from Galina, I'm not sure if I pronounced your name correctly, asks if would you recommend wearing hand or wrist splint for computer users?
I wouldn't encourage using any additional equipment on our body. Like I mentioned, unless if you're already undergone some kind of surgery, then you need to use a splint or something to recover, because your muscle needs to train itself to recover back to the position so that it can function as normally as possible. If not, you always need to wear a splint to get that working. So I wouldn't encourage that. Would you, Dr. Chua?
You're mute.
I think you might have to unmute him. I think he can't unmute himself. That's what he's saying, I think.
Yeah, thank you for reading my lips, Jai. Yeah, I completely agree with what Jai is saying. In fact, I'll take it one step further. You know, even if in the beginning, in the initial stages, the hand splint helps with the pain, okay, it doesn't get rid of the problem, and over time the problem will get worse, right? And if it gets worse, the road to recovery will also become longer.
Thank you for your advice, Dr. Choi and Jai. Last question from Jared Lowe. Jared's asking, as he is using a standing desk, is there a recommended duration in terms of how long he should stand, and if he should be standing all the way, or breaking it up and sitting at some time?
I think this is coming back to the same topic where Dr. Chua was mentioning. It's all about taking the breaks that you need for your body. So you should be still taking the necessary breaks. So if it's up to you. If you feel that you could do with a break with every 15 minutes of the time that you're standing is good. If you could stretch it a bit more, you could. So long as your body is feeling fine and your body is not telling yourself that I'm having some sore foot, that's fine. So it's fundamentally about switching between work and breaks. So the more breaks you have, the more pleasure you can have while standing at work.
Yep, agreed. Generally between 15 to sometimes even up to 45 minutes would be a good range to try and switch between positions and postures.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Chua and Jai. So before we end the session, unfortunately, we are not able to answer all of your questions, but we'll be more than happy to address your questions if they are unanswered. And this session is being recorded. So at any point of time, if you need a refresher on what were the exercises that Dr. Chua has shared with us or Jay has shared with us, feel free to log on to IOSH Singapore branch website. You would be able to get a copy of this presentation as well. So without further ado, perhaps I would like now to send the certificate of appreciation to Jay Prakash for hosting this event.
Right. Thank you. Let me virtually receive it.
Thank you very much. And now for Dr. Chua for your time supporting this event.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So before we end,
ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So before we end, could I request that all of us to turn on our camera and we'll do a group photo. Ready? All right. Ready? 1, 2, smile. All right. Thank you very much for joining us for this IOSH Singapore branch event. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.